What's up, guys? It's everyone's favorite Campy here, and right now I'm going to go over some of my takeaways from the last quantified performance match, and I'm also going to bring you guys along with me in my preparation for the match that's coming up this weekend. So I'm actually doing back-to-back quantified performance match. Last weekend it was at Arena Training Facility in Blakely, Georgia. Awesome facility, by the way. Love that place. Love Eddie Nolan too. Awesome. And then the next one is going to be at Pig River in Virginia, and I'll be at that one this weekend. I'll be shooting the same rifle, the Campy rifle. So let's jump right into it. Some of the things I'm going to talk about in this video, you can actually see happen in my last video, which I will link in the description. No, I won't. You're an adult. Find it yourself. Anyway, one of the takeaways that I found from the last match was because I didn't have a throw lever on my magnification adjustment on my scope and had to use old fucking Ninja Turtle hand here to do it, it definitely affected my time substantially. So, simple solution to that, put a throw lever on the gun. So, I ordered a throw lever, went ahead and threw that on the gun and my backup gun. My primary gun, the Campy rifle, and then my secondary gun are very similar. They're both 20-inch 5.56s with muzzle brakes, primary arms 4-14 R-grid scopes. Just one of them's the original R-grid, the other one's the R-grid 2B. They both have two-stage triggers, and they both fuck hard. Back when I was bipedal, I used to oftentimes RO as I was shooting a match. It's a lot more difficult to do now, but there's nothing stopping me from sitting behind glass and, calling hits, either sitting in my wheelchair or, standing for a short period of time. I just can't do it for, a long period. So, what I used to do is I used to almost always want to shoot last, or one of the last places. And the reason why is I could watch the wind. I could watch the wind throughout the course of a period of time where we had multiple shooters go through a stage, and I could also see how the wind was affecting their trajectories. So that was an advantage that I used to have before, whereas now I don't really do that. In fact, I don't always get a look at the wind before a stage, which is also something I need to improve. I need to take a look at the wind before I shoot a stage that has a 90-second par time. It's rough to do whenever you get behind the rifle and then you try to figure out what the wind's doing on the clock. Something else I learned, at least for me, someone with a prosthetic, sidestepping is slower than walking forward. I tried on one of the stages to sort of sidestep to get to my position, and it took me more steps to do that, which took me longer. So that was another takeaway, is if I have a stage where, sidestepping is sort of an option and it's not me just behind a tripod taking a little short half step where I actually have to cover some ground, I need to just go ahead and, left face, right face, and then just march. Something I learned was shooting targets on uneven terrain, balancing on one leg offhand is really fucking difficult. See, shooting offhand unsupported is already a challenge in itself because you are lacking the support element. And whenever you have to fight with balance at the same time, it makes it exponentially more difficult. I used to love stages that required offhand shooting because I practiced it all the time. But, now it's, I haven't been practicing it the way that I should, so I need to practice it more. Standing on flat ground, it's not as bad. Like if I'm standing on a platform or something like that. But as soon as my left leg isn't straight with my right leg anymore, whenever they're at different elevations, my knee tends to lock and unlock. So I'm trying to force my prosthetic to do something that it doesn't want to do whilst firing a rifle at, you know, maybe 300 yards, which is close to what it was this weekend, just standing. So it's very difficult, very challenging. I need to practice it more. I need to just be better in general. So there's that. This one is kind of two-part, and they both have to do with my mental focus, capacity, ability, post-accident. So prior to the accident, if I had very simple elevation to hold for targets that were, you know, whatever distance away, I could just remember it and I didn't need to write it down for a stage. For example, there was a stage at the last match where my elevation was 2.4 for the near target and 4.2 for the far target. And I told myself, I was like, oh, that's easy, I can remember that. Shot it from the first position, cool. Transition to the second position, shoot it from the second position, cool. Get to the third position and I start holding the 4.2 that I just held on the last shot from the previous position on the 2.4 target. So I'm throwing shots right over the target. That was a personal error, and it could easily be remedied just by wearing my quarterback sleeve and just throwing those two simple numbers on my quarterback sleeve just to reference. Part two of that is I never used to get lost in my reticle. I've always been somebody who would zero a scope at 100 yards and then I wouldn't touch it, and I would just do holdovers for everything after that in a competition. And I've held holdovers for very long shots, very precise shots for a long time. And I found this weekend on a couple of stages I was getting lost in the reticle. And you know, it's a problem I didn't used to have, but it's a problem I have now, so I need to adjust accordingly. Once I realized it was happening, she's so fast. Once I realized that it was happening, I started to actually dial, which is not normally something that I would do in a competition, but I would dial for the first target, and then I would do a holdover for the second target, third target, fourth target, whatever. Unless they were less than 600 yards away, then it wasn't that big of a deal. Last takeaway is something that I learned in sniper school, and it's absolutely applicable in quantified performance matches, really any precision rifle match that you shoot. Before you take a shot or before you do any of that stuff with your rifle, you're supposed to perform PPU, which is power, parallax, elevation, windage. So it's basically you just going over your scope and making sure that your scope is where you know that it is. So like you as the shooter know what your scope is set to at all times. So something that I could have done that would have been better in that situation is, you might have noticed on one or two of the stages I grab the parallax knob and I adjust it real fast. Parallax isn't as hard to adjust for me as the magnification, but it still cost me seconds of time, which, you know, seconds of time in a competition could be the difference in, you know, placement. So going ahead and setting my magnification, setting my parallax, if I'm gonna dial windage, you know, go ahead and, you know, dial my windage on my scope, and then, you know, having my data card on my quarterback sleeve on my forearm. And then as far as windage goes, you know, being able to look down range prior to shooting a stage and get a good idea of what the wind is doing would have absolutely helped me out a lot this past weekend. But it's all shit I didn't do, so that's why it's a learning experience, you know. I'm Cameron Hayes, the Camputee. This weekend I will be at the Quantified Performance Pig River match in Virginia. I hope to see you guys out there. If you guys stick around, you will see me go through my process to get ready for the match, which is velocity data, confirm zero. I'm not going to bore you guys with my pre-match cleaning procedures, make you guys watch, but I will tell you that between matches, before every match, I take apart the bolt carrier group, knock all the carbon off of it, lubricate it liberally. I clean the chamber and star chamber with a chamber brush on a drill, and I actually clean it out like that because I'm trying to reduce the carbon ring if there is one, or completely knock it out. And then I run a few patches down the bore, one wet with rubbing alcohol, and then the rest of them are dry. Alright guys, I'm out here on the range with the Campia T rifle. I am shooting the same ammo that I shot last time, which is the LMMG 77 grain. And as I'd said, I put the throw lever on the magnification ring on my scope. Moves much easier now. And I've got it on 14 power. I have my parallax set to the target, and I'm going to fire 6 rounds out of the gun. I believe I have 7 rounds in the magazine. The first round is going to be my cold bore shot, and I will print that in the center of the target, and then I'm going to shoot the subsequent 5 rounds at the bottom of the diamond. I'm going to arm the chronograph now. She is armed, and I have a recoil sensor attached to my chronograph and to the Picatinny rail on my rifle. I've found that with the LabRadar, a lot of times I wasn't picking up shots, especially because I shoot a lot of stuff suppressed, pretty frequently, and throwing this thing on there was just a game changer, just absolute game changer. I don't think I've missed a single shot on the LabRadar since I've put the recoil sensor on. That was 24. 28. 28. Looks like a pretty good group from here. 2877. The group is not as good as the group I shot last week. Last week I shot a .7, and it was just one round that was outside of a bug hole. This group is a little larger. I can tell from back here it's a little larger. And also there is a slight point of impact shift. I am going to adjust the scope based on that point of impact shift. Alright, so I've made some adjustments on the scope, and I'm going to shoot a couple more rounds just to, 1, get more velocity data, why not, but 2, to confirm that where it is now is where I want it to be impacting. Alright, that's where I want it. So that was a 9-shot series. My average velocity was 28.55. This past weekend, my average velocity was 28.93. My high was actually 28.93. My low was 28.15. Extreme spread 78. Standard deviation 27. And it was 9 shot.